So hello everyone, welcome to this another video of Scale Up India. I'm Abhishek Verma and you have started watching JDBC Part-8 Tips to Enhance the Code. So in this video we are not going to learn any new part of the JDBC. Instead we are just going to learn some tips and tricks by which we can decrease the number of lines of our code as well as we can make it look more better and professional. So let's get started. This has been again made with the help of JDK 17, and let me directly run this demo once to show you what all things we have in this one. So as you can see, it is having all the features which we have covered so far. It is having the feature to add the new owner, that is the create operation. Then it is having the feature to fetch the owner details, update the pet details of the owner and delete the owner details. So which means all the CRUD operations are there. And as you know that these operations we performed with the help of prepared statement. Then this is also having the option of fetch all owners. And since in fetch all owners we don't need any input from the user specifically, so this has been just made with the help of statement. And finally we are also having an option to update the pet details as per the pet type. And as you remember, this we did with the help of stored procedure and the callable statement. So all the operations are available here as it is, and there is nothing new in the code as of now. So let me just stop this and directly take you to the repository IMPL for this and see how much the code looks as of now. So as you can see, the code is looking very bigger. So this is almost like 254 lines. And one of the reasons is that although that we have so many methods here, but important part is that every method is having a finally block here. And as you know that why do we need this finally block? We need this in order to close all the resources which we have started during the particular method. So we need to write this much finally block. And if I say, then every finally block is taking almost 15 lines. So if I'm having 4 methods with me, then it is like 60 lines of code I need to write explicitly. So what do you think? How can we decrease these number of lines? Just tell me in the comment section once by pausing the video, and then we will directly try to do the same. So I guess you have mentioned in the comment section till now, and if your answer is try with resources, then obviously it's a correct answer. So now let's try to enhance our code with the help of try with resources here. So in order to start with the try with resources, the very first thing which I will be doing here is that I will be adding some brackets. Now as you know that in these brackets, what we generally do, we try to put all the resources which we will be using in this particular method. So the two resources which we are going to use here are connection and prepared statement. So let me just say Control X and let me just put them here, something like this. And currently you see the code is starting from line number 30. If I consider this @ override also, and it is going till line number 76, which means it is taking almost 46 lines, and overall the initial size of this particular class is 254 lines. So this is important to know so that later on we can appreciate what we have done today. Now coming on to this connection part. So currently it is null, but I need to initialize this connection. So what I will be doing is that I will be cutting this particular line from here and pasting it out here. So this is the way I will be doing. And same for the prepared statement. Let me say Control X and let me say here Control Y. Oh sorry, Control V. There is nothing like Control Y. Now obviously as you can see that 2 lines from here and 2 lines from here have been reduced. So that is what we have achieved so far, but you will say that again 2 lines have been added here. So as of now there is nothing much done, but now the best part of the story comes that since we are making usage of these try with resources here, we don't need this finally block, and now I can remove this particular part from here, something like this. And now you can see that our code is getting started from line number 30, but it is just ending at line number 58. So now this is a code of just 28 lines. Earlier it was 46 and now it is almost 28. So this is what we have achieved so far. and your code looks something like this. It's a very simple one. The connection is getting started here, prepared statement is starting here. If any issue will occur, then it will be closed automatically because we are making usage of try with resources. Yeah? And the order is very important by which we are writing here. So we know that this prepared statement comes within the connection. So whenever it will try to close, first of all, it will try to close the prepared statement, and then it is going to close your connection. So this is what we have achieved. Now let me quickly try to do the same with others also, and then let me show you the overall size of this particular. So here we are, and as you can see that for the find owner also, I have done the same, that I have mentioned here connection and the prepared statement in my try with resources. The size has decreased because of this. Same I have done for the update path details. Same I have done for the delete owner. And the same thing works for the find all owners also. Although that we are making usage of statement here, but there is no big change for this particular thing. And you can do the same for the callable statement. And because of this, if you see, the overall size has been decreased to 145 lines. So just you can again pause the video, go back in the video and see the initial number of lines. Now it has been just reduced to 145 lines. So this is the first tip and the trick which you can perform in order to decrease the number of lines of your code. Not only it is going to decrease the number of lines of your code, but also it is going to enhance your code. As a developer, you don't need to write the extra lines, and it is going to save your time also and make your code look better. So our tip number one was that we should always try to go for try with resources whenever we are working with anything like this. Not only with the JDBC, but whenever you are working with the files also and other things, you should make usage of try with resources. Now let's proceed with the next tip. Now the next issue with this particular code is that, as you can see, that we are mentioning this database URL, username and password again and again. So in almost every method, we need to create a connection, and then only we can go for a prepared statement or a callable statement. So for this, we need to do the same particular stuff again and again. So the same line is getting repeated here, same is getting repeated here and everywhere. So that's the issue. Now imagine that you are not having only one repository class. Your code is going to become big, and in that particular case, you are having multiple repository class. Now in every repository class, let's say there are 3 to 5 methods. And for an average, for the simplest calculation, let's consider it to be 5 methods every repository class, and such that you are having almost, let's say, 6 repository classes. For a very big professional level code, this is not a very big number. It's a very small number. I have worked in the projects where I will be using something like 10 to 20 repository classes also. Although I was not directly making usage of JDBC. But yeah, that's the truth. Now in that particular case, if I'm having 6 repository classes, and then every repository class is, let's say, having 5 methods. So in total there are 30 methods, and in almost all the 30 methods, I'm writing this particular statement again and again to create a connection. And generally what happens is that you are not working with the multiple databases. Generally your code is going to have a particular database only. So that means the database URL is going to remain same, the username is going to remain same, and the password is also going to remain same. So what do you think, what can be the solution? The solution can be that instead of writing the same thing again and again and creating the connection again and again, what if we could have a common method in this particular class only? And whenever we are going to call that particular method, it is going to provide us the connection for the database. So that would have become very much easier for us. So let's try to do the same here. So for this, what I will be doing is that I will be creating a method, and as of now, let me just call here public, and then it is going to provide me the connection. So let me say public connection, and we can just call it something like get connection, something like this here. So this is what we have done. Now in this particular method, what I wish to do is I wish to copy this particular statement as it is. So let me just copy this and let me provide it here. So this is something which I have done, and in this particular method what I will be doing is that it says that Either you can surround it with a try catch or you can just throw the declaration. Now since we are going to close everything here, so better that from here we are just going to throw the error. So let me just say throw. So it is going to look something like this, and in the next statement let me just say here return connection. So it is going to look like this. So we are returning the connection here. And now it says that immediately return. So yeah, that also can be done if required. So let me just say here return. That also looks good. There is no issue with this part. So it becomes just a single line of code. And now what I can do is I can just copy this particular method and just try to write things here. Now it is going to look something like this. So you may say that okay, earlier also it was one line, now also it is one line, but the point is you don't need to repeat that much big line, and you can just put say here get connection at all the places. So let me just quickly copy and paste it out in all the particular methods, something like this. So in this third method, in this fourth method, and in this find all owners method also, let me just do the same, and in this particular update also let me just quickly do the same. So this is how your code is going to look like now. But now also there is one particular problem. Now the problem is that this works when I'm having only one repository class. But what if I have multiple repository class? Then it means that in all the repository class I need to have this particular get connection method. And then again it is again the repeating, we are repeating our code again and again. So what do you think, what can be done best for this? So for this, the better approach would be that we could have a separate class where we are going to create the connection, and then that particular method we can invoke in all our repository classes. That would have been much more better. In that case, even if I'm having let's say 10 repository classes, and then every repository is having let's say even 5 methods, I just need to write this get connection method once. I don't need to write them in all my classes. So what I will be doing is I will be just creating a class here. So let me say new and this particular class. Now you can give it any name, but the better practice is that since this is going to be a kind of configuration class for your database, so we can call it as DatabaseConfig, or you can even call it as configuration. And the package name also, let's try to go for a different one by saying com.scaleupindia.config, something like this. So we have done it here. Now let me copy this particular thing, or let me just say Control X and let me just paste it out here. So this is Control V. Now the problem is that it needs your URL, username and password. So for this, let me copy all these three variables, because now we don't need them here. We just need them in our database config. So that's an extra advantage. We don't need to write all these three variables again and again in all the classes. We can just put them in one single place, which is something here. So let me just say Control V, and this is going to look like this. So now this looks even much more better. But the point is I need to call this particular method in this particular repository class. And as you know, the rule says that if I need to call this method, then I need to create an object of the database config. But the point is that I don't want to create the object of database config again and again. Yeah. So what if I can try to call this method directly without creating an object? So in that particular case, what we can do is we can make this method as static in nature, something like this, so that we can directly call it with the class name. And since now we don't need the constructor for this particular class, I mean, why do we need constructor? So that we can create an object. Why do we create an object? So that we can call the method. And this class is going to have only one single method. So we don't need anything like that. So in that particular case, let me just say here private constructor. So this is a database. So let me say here database config, which is going to look like this. And yeah, this one will be looking fine as it is. So it looks like this. And now what we can say here is that this is the class name. So let me just copy this out and say here DatabaseConfig dot get connection, and this DatabaseConfig I need to just import it here. So now this looks like this. So it's a database config and I need to paste it everywhere. So I need to just say here a dot also. Let me copy this with the dot itself so that I don't need to write it again and again. And yeah, now this even looks much more better. So something like this. So we have even decreased it by few more lines. Let me just say Control Shift O, Control Shift F, and now let's see. So now you can see now it is just 142 lines. So you may say that earlier it was 146, now 142. So what's the big deal? But the big deal is that now we don't need to create the connection again and again. And the more better advantage you are going to see when you will be having multiple classes with you. So this is the another thing which we have done here. And before we try to move forward with the next tip or the trick, let's try to run the code once so that let's see that whether the code is running fine or not. Yeah, otherwise we will just keep on moving and then we will come to know it is not even working. So generally I follow this principle that whenever I try to make any such kind of enhancement in my code, I just try to run the code so that to ensure that yeah, everything is working in the place, and later on if it is not working, then at least I will get an idea that due to which particular change it has stopped working. And the easiest one of these methods is going to be fetch all owners, because for that I don't need to provide any kind of input. So let me just say 5 and say enter. And as you can see, we are getting almost all these 72 owners with us. So hence we can see the code is going to work fine. Rest you can just try to run each and every method once. I don't want to do that, otherwise the video is going to become big. Now let's try to proceed with the next tip here. Now the next tip is going to be very interesting here. So as you can see that everything looks fine as of now, but if you see there are still few changes which we can do here, and those changes are that as you can see that currently what happens is that within our Java class we are mentioning the things like the URL, username, password, and even the things like our driver name. Now the point is, let's say that in future there is a change in your database URL. So maybe instead of the local host, you try to go for something else like maybe the Google Cloud, or maybe you are trying to go for the Azure or AWS database. So in that particular case, you need to make the changes here. Or even if not that, let's say you are just going to make change in your schema name, then also you need to change here. Now you will say, yeah, that is obvious. What is the big deal in that? Now the issue in that is that whenever you are going to make such a change, you need to compile your class again, because there is a change in the Java class, and whenever there is a change in the Java class, you need to recompile your class. Yeah, same thing is with your username and the password also. So here you are directly writing your username and password something here, the code which anyone can see. So instead of writing these credentials and these other properties here, what if we could have written these properties somewhere else, somewhere outside our Java classes, and whenever needed we can directly read from that particular place to our Java classes. I mean, that would have been even much more better. The first benefit would have been that let's say that in future you try to change your URL, username and password. You just need to change in that something extra space. As of now, I'm not mentioning what can be that extra space. So let's try to consider it some arbitrary extra space. So it can be anything. So you just need to make changes there, and there would haven't been any kind of change in your Java class. And then no one even cares that where you are trying to make usage of your URL, user name and password, because you just need to change somewhere else. You don't need to go to each and every class and see what other things you need to do or you need to make the changes. So that is the point. Now in order to do such a thing, there can be multiple ways. There can be ways like that you are storing it in some kind of variable. Yeah, and those variables can be in some kind of properties file. So when I use the term here properties file, it can be kind of any kind of just a simple txt file. So here currently, since our code is available here only in the local host, what we can do is we can have a separate properties file. Now that separate properties file can be located anywhere. It can be within my project also. It can be even outside my project. But the problem is that if it is going to be outside my project, then again I need to mention the location of that particular file. So in the real world, in the production, there are different ways. There we are working with the Kubernetes and with many other things also. And then there are different kinds of vaults also available, configurations also available, with which you can achieve those things easily. But as of now, we are working with a very basic code. And maybe you are just a very initial learner with the Java. So we are not going to enhance our code by very much. But what we are going to do is that we will be just using a separate txt file. And that txt file, as of now, we will just place in our resources folder only. The folder which we created earlier for our SQL files. So there only we are going to put here. Later on, whenever we will be moving towards the Hibernate and then towards the Spring and microservices, then we will see that how we can even enhance it more better. But as of now, this is going to be a good start. So what I will be doing here is that I will be saying here something like a new, and then I'll go to this particular file. And then I will be providing the name here. So since it is going to have your credentials of your database only, so let's call it as database.properties. Now you may say that won't it be a kind of a conflict, because there is a database properties also, there is a database.sql also. I will say no, there won't be any kind of conflict because their extensions are different. This is just a properties file, this is just a SQL file. Now generally, whenever we try to make any properties file something like this, then what we do is we try to put our things in a key value pair. This is just something like a dictionary. Now here we are not going in detail of how those files and all these things work, but I will just try to give you an overview. So here in our properties file, generally we have things like this. So let's say there is something like a key 1, and then there is a particular value for this, so which we call it as value 1. Then it is going to be something like a key 2, and then it is going to be something like a value 2. So let me just try to write it here. So this is going to be a value 2, and then similarly so on. You can have any number of things, whatever you wish. So let me quickly try to replace them with our actual values. So what I will be doing is that currently we need all these three values there. So let me copy from this place and let me paste it out here like this. Now in the properties file, generally you will say that whenever we are going to work with the Hibernate framework or later on with the Spring framework, so there is a particular style, there is a particular format which we write. And that particular format is that everything should be in the small letters here, something like this. And then if you are having something, a big word here, so let's say database underscore URL. So instead of saying underscore, we try to go with a dot here, something like this, database.url. So this is the way we will be writing it out here. So let me copy this and replace this one also and replace this one also here. And for this, let me just say here username, and for the last one it is going to be a password here. So this is how it is going to look like. Now here everything will be considered as your string only, so you don't need to worry much, and you can just simply say it like this, no need of semicolon also. And yeah, this is going to look like these. So all the three things you have mentioned here. And not only this, we also need this particular driver. So why should we even write this thing separately? So let's keep it here itself, so that all the properties are available in a particular place only. So it will look something like this. So this is your database.driver. So, and again, as I mentioned you, no need of double inverted commas. So yeah, this is going to look like. So your key is, let's say, database.driver, and your value is that particular one. Your key is database.url and your value is Pakistan_JDBC. Key is username and the value is root, something like this. So all these things have been done here. Now since we have mentioned all these things there, so what should we write here? Now I want to refer those values here. So in that particular case, I need to refer them with the help of the key. I mean, let's say if I ask you to search something on the dictionary for the meaning of a particular word. First of all thing is you will ask me the word for which you need to search the meaning. So same way here, I need to provide you the key here. So this key, let's replace the keys here, something like this. And for this, we can say here your username. And for this particular one, we can write it out here, your password. So all these things are available. And same way for this one also, let me just try to say here your driver. So this is also done. So yeah, everything looks good. But what do you think? Will this work? Just by saying here database.url, do you think that it is going to read this particular value from here and it is going to replace? Because why we have done this particular thing? Because now if you see that if I just want to make any change in my URL, username and password or even the driver, I don't need to make change in any of the Java classes. I just need to change my properties file and that's it. And I know a very particular place also that the name is database.properties. I don't need to think that okay, whether it is available in DatabaseConfig or repository MPL or where. So that advantage we have achieved here. But the problem is how to read it from that particular place. Now for that particular thing, again, whenever we will be working with the later on things like the Hibernate framework or the Spring framework, there are different things available for reading from the different properties file also. But as of now, we are going to make it very simple and we will be just reading with the help of the properties thing. So this properties is again a particular special class here. So let me just say here private static, because again we just need to use that properties once. So we will be saying here properties and something like this, and this properties is again going to look this particular one. So let me just write it here once and then I can explain it more better that how this properties is going to work for us. So let me just say here new of properties. So it is going to look like this one properties, and if I just say here, so it is coming from your java.tutils, and if I say open declaration, so this class is going to look like this. So this is your properties class, with the help of which we can read the things from any kind of file. And don't try to mean that since here we are saying dot properties, so hence the name of the class is properties. If you can even read it from the .txt file, yeah, but in general since these are your properties, so it's better to go for the extension like dot properties. It can be anything also, it can be .txt also, that also would have been easier, but this is the more preferred one way. Now the thing is how to make usage of this particular properties. So for this properties, what we need to do is we need to load the things. So for that particular one, first of all, we need to give the location of the particular file. And let's say that since the code is going to start from your constructor, yeah, so let's assume this constructor will be called once. So what I will be doing here is, as of now, is I will be making usage of something like a file reader. And if you don't know anything much about your this file readers and Java IO, then also nothing to worry. We are going to use only the very basic part here. And hence you will see that okay, we don't need to go into much details of these file readers and everything. Just a very basic knowledge is going to be sufficient, whatever we are going to cover in this particular video. So I will be just saying here file reader, something like this particular file reader, and here I will be saying here new of, let's say this file reader here. So this is going to be your new of file reader and it will look like this. And let's say here we will be providing the path of that particular file reader. Now this file reader is again going to give you some kinds of exceptions here. So let's try to surround it with your try and catch block only as of now, something like this. And now what we will be doing with this file reader. So here, this is going to be the location, which I will try to put at the end. Let me just write rest of the logic as of now. So this is your file reader. And now I will just say properties dot load. So I will be just saying here load, and then here I will be saying file reader, which means that I need to load all the properties from this particular file reader. And again, let's say surround with a try and catch block here. And since these are IO exception and file not found, so what I can do is I can try to make it a single one, and let me paste it out here. I don't need this particular explicitly. I don't need it here. I don't even need this thing out here. And as you know, this file not found exception is a child of IO exception. So we don't need that particular one now, and only this IO exception can do our job. So this is how it is going to look like for you. So a very simple thing. So we are just saying a file reader. With the file reader, we are going to specify the location of the file, and then we will say that we need to load these particular values here. And once we have loaded these particular values, so that we are just mentioning here, and now we need to say here that how we will be utilizing these values. So this is the properties. So we will just say here properties dot, so let me just say copy, and now I will be saying properties dot, and then I can say here something like this particular one as get property. So this is how it is going to read the values. Properties dot get property. So which property it needs to read? The password. Now you will say, what is this database dot password? So it is mentioned here, database password. So when I will say here properties dot get property and the database dot password, so indirectly it is going to pick this value root here. And same thing I can do for the others also. So let me just try to copy here. Let me just paste it out here, something this. So here it goes, and let me just try to mention it out here also. And yeah, there it goes, something like this. And yeah, I can see a mistake here that we have repeated this password twice. So the very first one should not be password, but it needs to be your URL. So yeah, it is going to look something like this. So now we have the whole logic to read from a particular place. And for this, what we just did, first of all, with the help of file reader, we mentioned the location of file that we will be mentioning in some time. And then we told here that we need to load that particular thing to our properties, because with the help of properties only, we can connect a properties to your Java class. And then we just need to say get property. Within the get property, what we are mentioning? We are mentioning your keys. So your key is your URL, username and password, which we are mentioning here. Now, since in this particular class, all these things we are just using once. So if you wish, you can directly make usage of these values here also. But again, as a general practice, it is better to put them as a variable on the top, so that even if they are repeating, then you can do that thing again and again. Now, the next particular thing is that since you need to load from here also, so here also you need to do the same. First, again, you need to say file reader, then you need to say properties, and then you need to do the same thing here also, that database.driver by saying get property. So here also we see that there is a particular problem of writing the whole logic again and again. And as of now, I'm not even saying that this logic is going to work, because you say that, okay, no one is going to call the private constructor, so how this is going to work? So as of now, this is just a dummy. I'm not saying that this logic is going to work, yeah, because I have just given you an example. But the problem, if you try to understand, is that this logic I need to write in my this particular repository file also. And then if I having multiple repository files, then everywhere I need to write, because I need to read this database driver also. So for this properties thing also, what if we have a separate class from where we can get the properties particular thing, this particular variable, as and when required, and then we can read out the properties? Then it would have been even much more better. We don't need to repeat the logic again and again. So let's try to do that thing also. So since we already have this config, So let's create one more class. So this is your properties and this is going to be your config. So this is your properties config. Let me just say here finish. So this one looks here. Now the thing is that we don't need properties here. So let me just say Control X and let me put it out here. So your properties will come up in this particular place. And since this is your properties config class and this is the one, so let me just say here your particular one. As of now, let's try to call it as public only. So public, and then this is your properties, and then this is your config, going to look something like this. And then this logic also, let me just try to cut from here and let me just paste it out here. So this is how it is going to work for us. So this is the one. But the point is that if every time I will keep on saying new of properties config, so every time it is going to read. So I should not be saying new of properties config again and again. I just need properties config object only once so that I can point out this particular thing. I don't need to read it again and again. So for that also, what I can do is I can create a final static variable for the same thing. So let me just say here this properties config part also. So let me just copy and paste it out here by saying this properties config, and let me say here new of properties config, something like this. So this is going to be your properties config. And now we just need this instance once. So let me say here public, and then since we just need it once, so we can call it as static. And after static, we can say here that this is going to return us properties config, something like this, and this is to provide us just an instance. So it is going to look like this. So whenever I will be calling this, it should return me the instance of this properties config. So it should be looking like this, properties config. So now what happens is that I don't need to again make it as public. I can just make it as private so that it gets started once. And now how this particular one will be started, because I'm mentioning here properties config. So initially, whenever I will be saying here get instance, so it will provide me this particular variable. And since this is static and final, it will be just started only once. Whenever it will be started, it is going to read from your file reader. So this is done here. So now what we just need is we need to call this particular method get instance. So let me just write it out here, or let me copy this particular name first, properties config. So I have copied it, and what I can say here that instead of saying properties dot get property, I can say properties config dot get instance and then dot get property. So this is how we can see. But the problem is that this get instance is going to provide us properties config object, not the properties object. So hence we can't say here dot get property. So we again needs to do a little bit more hard work, and here we need to create one more method so that we can have that particular thing as particular one, the get property. So we will be saying here public string, and then we need to say here get property. We need to make our own method of get property which can take the particular string. So you can call it by any name. You can call it by saying get property, you can say here get value, or whatever you wish. And here we can just say here string as the key, and then whenever we are going to say here string is the key, the value is going to be properties. So let me just copy this particular one, properties here, and say here get this particular one. So get properties. So let me say here this one as get property. So this is how it is going to work here. So properties dot get property. So this is something which we can mention here, and here it says that this method must return. So let me just say here return keyword also. So this one is going to again look good for us. And now what I can again do here is, yeah, that now this method is available to me. PropertiesConfig dot get instance dot get property. Yeah, so that is available to me. So what I can do here is that I just need to copy all these things again and again, basically 3 times. So again I'm pasting out here for the username, and then I'm just pasting out here for the password also. So I have done this particular thing, and now your code looks something like this. And now even if you say that, okay, why you are saying that this get instance again and again, so yeah, this also we can do here very easily. So we can just do this also once. So we can say here something like this properties config. So let me just copy this particular thing, properties config here, and say here properties and this particular one as config, and then we can cut this thing from here, we can paste it out here, properties config. And yeah, this is the way by which we can get. Now there is nothing like repetition, so we can mention it here, we can mention it here, and we can even mention in this particular last part, so where it went. So yeah, there it goes. So something like this, properties config, and this p needs to be removed. So your properties config is coming fine now. So the code looks good. And what about the repository? So in the repository also we can do the same. So let me copy this particular line from here, and let me just paste it out here, something like this. And here let me, I just try to copy paste as much as possible. So let me just say here properties config. For this particular one I'm saying copy here, and here instead of saying, yeah, where it went, this is the one, properties config, and for this let me see here dot get property something, and then I can just say here like this. So this one also looks good, properties config dot get config. Now let me copy this line, then let me paste it out here for this one also, then let me paste it out here for this one, then let me paste it out here for this one, or let me just remove it from there. Yeah, and let me paste it here, then let me paste it here, and then here also. Now some of you may say that, okay, why you are writing this driver again and again? This driver is not needed anymore since we are using the latest version of JDK, we are using the latest version of MySQL also. And I have, I guess, already mentioned in my one of the previous videos that when you are using the latest versions, you just need to add it in your path that is here, and then it is automatically going to pick. The problem is that in some of the scenarios, let's say that you are making usage of two different drivers, so then it becomes a little difficult that which particular driver you wish to load here. So hence it is always a good practice that you mention all these things here, and that is something which I love. Now if you wish that you should not write here, then you can just omit this particular part here, and you can use the rest of the code, then you don't need this particular thing also. So now this thing looks good. So our database config also looks good, our properties file also looks good, this properties class is not coded by us, and this is the properties config. So this one also looks good. And now the only thing left is that what should be this particular location. So for this I will just go here, and I'm just telling you the easiest way, because many times people feel that, okay, which path should we write out here? So the easiest one is you just go there, you say properties, and then you copy this particular path from here. So just copy the whole path as of now, and say cancel because we have done nothing, and you just mention. So automatically whenever you will paste here, you will see that these double slashes are coming, and there is nothing wrong in this, so it's fine as of now. So you just save it out here, and then let's do something more interesting. As of now, since we need to run it for the first time, let's see whether everything works fine or not, and then we will try to enhance it more. So let me start it, and now if it works, then it is going to be a magic for us because we have done very big changes. So let's try to fetch all owners and see whether it works or not. And interestingly, it works. And the interesting part is, as you see in our repository, there is nowhere the direct mention of your connection or the driver name or anything else. Even in your database config, it is not mentioned. So from where it is reading the values, it is reading from your database.properties file. If you are in a doubt that okay, there is some mistake, maybe this person is reading from some other place, so let's try to do something different. Let's say here database1.properties. Now obviously I don't have any particular file like this database1.properties, or whatever the thing you will say, I can just write it out that too. Currently the time is like 11:33, so I can just mention that too here. I mean obviously that is something not I was knowing earlier. So this is 11:33. Now this file doesn't exist. And now if I just stop the code and read the things out again here, so you see that initially itself it has provided me the error that file has not been found. So that is the issue with this particular code. The file is not found here, and hence it is not going to work for us. So that is the particular problem. So this is something which we have seen that this works fine. Now the next thing is there is still some little bit part left, that every time do we need to write such a big particular address? The answer is no, you don't need to write. Now for this, the logic says that since we are reading this particular thing from here config, now this config is available within the src folder, and this resources and this database properties, so that is within the resources also within the src folder. So this src folder is common for both of them, so you just need to mention from that particular location. So instead of giving the whole absolute path, you can just give the relative path, and the relative path will look like this from your src. So you don't need to give the whole absolute path. And now if I run this again, it is again going to work fine for me. So something like this, it works here. Yeah. Now comes the next and the last interesting part of the story, and the last part is even much more interesting here. So here you see that now with the repository we are almost done, everything is completed here, and the code is comes out to be 144 lines. Yeah. Now the only thing which I can say that if you wish to decrease, you can put this particular code also somewhere outside where you are setting all the values. But the point is, since you are doing it only once, so there won't be anything much benefit for you even if you are going to do. Yeah. So that's the thing. Now what else we can do? Something else we can do is that in your service IMPL, if you see here, we are going to have some messages here, and let me show you how these messages are going to work. So if I run your code and I say here something like, let's say fetch owner details for 2. Now if I say 72, so since it is available, so it is going to work. And if I say y for the continue, then if I again say fetch owner details, and then if I say 100, so that particular owner is not available, and it is going to print me a particular message. Now suddenly the requirement got changed, and someone said here that don't say can't find owner with the owner ID. There should be a space between your owner and ID, and it should look something like this: owner ID, can't find owner with the owner ID. You will say it is just a small change, but because of this simple change, what happened was that you need to recompile your class again. So the question is, can we keep such kind of strings, such kind of things also outside our Java class, like the same thing we did for our database properties file? And the answer could be yes, we can do this thing. Since we have done it for the database.properties, we could have done for this particular thing also. So let's try to do the same. And if you wish, you can skip this part also, because you know how to do it. So for this, what I'll do is I will just again quickly say here new of this particular one file. Now since it is going to contain the messages only, so I will say here messages dot properties file. Also again, if you wish, you can do the all the things in this same particular file only, but then what's the meaning of saying that it is your database.properties file if it will contain your rest of the messages also? Yeah, so that's not a very good practice as of now. So what we will be doing is I'll just copy paste this and mention them here. something like this, and let me format it as per the requirement, then I'll come back. And yes, I'm back guys with the ready-made things again. So as you can see, this is the way I have done. And again, as I mentioned you, since our actual variable was owner underscore already underscore exist, so I have replaced it with this dot. And then again, it looks something like this. You don't need double inverted commas, or you don't need a semicolon. Then going to your service IMPL, I have mentioned the same things here also so that I can refer them. And this properties config also I have mentioned here. Now this is the advantage. So see, the same properties config you were able to use for your database also, same you can use in your even the service class also. Otherwise, just imagine that here also you need to write. And in all these places, I'm just need to say properties config dot get property. So everything I can just try to reuse here. And then will it be able to read from that particular place? So let's try to run it once. So let me just quickly run this and see what happens. So let me just say here 2, and for the owner ID I will just try to go for the wrong scenario. So it says this is null 100. Now why is it saying null 100? So this is saying null 100 because here the property is something like this, get property. Now currently it seems it is not able to find this property, owner not found, and directly it printed this particular owner ID as 100. So hence it is saying you null 100 something for me. But you will say that we have mentioned here. The problem is that we have mentioned here, we have done it here also fine, everything goes perfect, but in the properties config we haven't mentioned it that we need to read from there. So we need to do that particular thing also. So let me just do a copy paste as always. So let me paste it out here. Let me call this time it as 1, this one as 2. Let me say here 1. And for this particular one, since again this is available in that particular one, so let me say here messages, MESSAGES, so spelling is correct. And for this one also, let me just say copy and say here a paste, and let me say here file reader 2. So this is how your code is again going to look like, and it says try with resources or close the file reader. So yeah, okay, we haven't done that, so that's the mistake. We are not closing these particular things. So let me do that also quickly. Instead of writing out these two things here, let's start writing them here. So let's try to make usage of try with resources. So this one looks even much more better. Now it is even getting closed. So this is also done. And now let's see whether it is going to work or not. So it goes, it comes here, and let's again say 100, and yeah, this works perfect. Can't find owner with the owner ID, and this time it is reading the value from this particular place. Can't find owner with the owner ID. Since here I have given some extra space, that's why it is able to read it like this particular plus and this, and everything works. And if you feel that okay, still you can do something more better, so that also can be done here. So what happens is that there is something like a formatting also. So here we were adding this particular 100 at the end, so hence it was easy. But what if I need to write somewhere here in between, let's say I want to say owner with owner ID something not found. Now in that case it would have become a problem for me. Then how would have I have written? So for such scenarios, the option is you just start saying here percentage s, something like this, percentage s. So this percentage s will try to read your things, and not only percentage s will do the thing, here also you need to do something like this. You need to say here string dot format, and then this particular format we will just say here bracket, and here within the string dot format we don't need this plus anymore, and because we are trying to do a formatting here, and this is something which we will be writing out here, string dot format. So let me just quickly copy this and paste it out here also, and let me remove this plus symbol from here, and let's put a closing bracket here too, and let me copy this whole line here. So this I have done, this also I have done, then this one also I have done, and yeah, everything is available now. So we are going to format the things. Now let me just run it one more time, and if I say here 2 and if I say here let's say 100, so it is going to work perfect without even the plus symbol, without any kind of concatenation. Now even if your this particular variable things come in between or at the end in the starting, you can mention it any of the ways just by saying here percentages. So this is something which we have done in this particular demo. So if we quickly recap, what are the important things we have done in order to enhance our code is that first of all, everywhere instead of using the separate final block, we started using try with resources. The direct advantage it provides us by decreasing the number of lines and enhancing our code. We do, as a developer, I don't need to mention extra number of lines. The another thing we started using was that here we started having a common database config. So till the time you are having only one database, it is going to work very perfect. In case if you let's say have two database sources, then also you can have one more get connection here. You can just give it a name like get MySQL connection, get PostgreSQL connection, and whatever you wish you can try to use there. So that also was an advantage. The third thing we started using was that we started keeping the things outside our Java classes in order to enhance our code. And the first thing was with our database properties. So that we have done here. Now in future, if I just need to make any change in my database properties, I don't need to open any of the Java classes. I just need to open this particular properties file only. I can make a change and yeah, it is going to work fine. Now the point was how to read from there. So for that we started using a separate properties config, and for the whole code we just need to write only one properties config with the help of which we can read any number of files, and this is the way which we started reading. And since we have done this, so for your service IMPL also I started using the same properties config, which you can see is that very easy just by saying here get instance and everything, and there also I can do some kind of formatting like this. Now if you say that in your demo class also there are some of the statements, what if I wish to keep them outside? So yeah, that also can be done very easily. You can mention all these things here in your messages.properties just by mentioning a key value pair, and then you can start using them out here also. There is something like input util also, so if you wish to keep these things also outside, that also can be done, but that I will be just keeping as a practice homework for you so that you can try out some of the things. Otherwise there is nothing different and it will be just a kind of a repetition. So with this guys, I hope that you have liked the video, and with this we are done with our JDBC series. So within the JDBC series, we have done so many things, starting from the demo 0, where we started just without doing anything. Like it was not even the JDBC, and there the repository, if you remember, it was just a dummy repository with the help of a list. And then we went for the demo 1, where we just simply have made the connection with the database. I just did with the MySQL, you can do it with any other kind of database. Then with the demo 2, we try to implement statement, and we also saw how the SQL injection attack can occur. Then in the demo 3, we learned that how to do the same thing with the help of the prepared statement and how to solve the issue of the SQL injection attack. Then with the demo 4, we did even something much more interesting, and we learned something about the callable statements. So that we did there in the demo number 4. And in the demo number 5, we saw something even much more interesting, that is transactions. So we learned that by default there is automatic transactions. In the last demo also we made usage of automatic, but if you wish you can do manual transaction. If you wish you can make usage of the save points also as your checkpoints. And in the last demo, it was nothing much related to the JDBC directly. Instead it was related to enhancing your overall code, which we did with the help of try with resources, DatabaseConfig, and this particular PropertiesConfig. Yeah. So with this, our JDBC series is over, and some of you were still saying that why haven't you done it everything with the help of the Maven? So our next video is going to be on Maven. So there we will be utilizing one of the things only. I won't be coding everything again there, but yeah, some of the things will be there with the Maven, and then we will be proceeding with the Hibernate and then with the Spring. But for this, the very minimum thing which you guys needs to do is Then if you find that my videos are something different from others, then you just need to watch the video, you just need to like the video, you just need to comment, so that at least YouTube also will get an idea that you are liking the videos. And obviously you need to subscribe the channel. Yeah, currently we are stuck on 398, I guess, at the time of recording this video. So let's see we will be able to reach 400 or not after this. Yeah, so thanks everyone, and see you next time.